In just 3 minutes, Jasmine Crockett, a formidable attorney, left the entire federal court stunned, exposing the true nature of a judge right in front of live television cameras. At 8 a.m., she not only uncovered the judge's questionable actions, but also forced him to face the truths he thought he could hide. Jasmine's sharp arguments and determination created a powerful wave, turning the trial into a relentless battle. The question remains, is true justice really on the side of the one fighting for the truth, or is it just an illusion from the perspective of the judge's bench? Imagine yourself standing in a frigid hallway of a federal courthouse, where the pale glow of fluorescent lights spills onto a polished granite floor, reflecting each footstep like hammer strikes against a heavy silence. The sound of Jasmine Crockett's shoes echoes, not rushed but resolute. Each tap, a silent declaration of war against a world waiting for her to falter. In her hands she carries a thick stack of documents, pages that hold not just evidence but the weight of forgotten voices. Mothers who lost homes to shady contracts, young men wrongfully convicted because they couldn't afford a good lawyer. Invisible people society has turned its back on. She steps through a heavy wooden door, her gaze unwavering, even though ahead of her sits Howard Gates, a judge with power that seems untouchable, his eyes cold as a blade, staring at her like an outsider daring to trespass on his domain. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, if justice is no longer justice, but merely a tool in the hands of the powerful to crush the weak, what do we have left? This isn't just a case recorded in court minutes on an April morning in 2025. It's a mirror reflecting the injustices we witness every day, from trials rigged by money and privilege to voices silenced because they don't bear the right skin color or the right bank account. Jasmine Crockett didn't just walk into a courtroom that day, she walked into history, and I want you to join her, not to find a tidy Hollywood ending, but to confront the deep cracks in a society we often choose to ignore, hoping someone else will fix them. As the courtroom door slams shut behind her, the air inside grows thick, suffocating, not just from the smell of old wood or paper, but from an invisible pressure bearing down on every breath. Jasmine sets her stack of documents on the table, the sound of paper hitting wood cutting through the eerie silence, and she lifts her head, her eyes steady, despite a heart pounding like it might break free from her chest. She doesn't glance at the whispering crowd or the 3 TV cameras aimed at her like the blank eyes of the public. Her gaze locks on to Howard Gates, the man perched above, his black robe fluttering slightly, a curtain hiding secrets he believes no one dares touch. He doesn't greet her, doesn't nod, just offers a slow, contemptuous glance, as if she's a cheap trinket on a shelf he wouldn't bother to buy. Jasmine feels that contempt like an unseen knife at her throat, but she doesn't let it shake her. She's faced looks like this before, from cops she once cross-examined as a defense attorney, from law professors who said she wasn't cut out for their world, from neighbors who whispered that a black girl like her shouldn't dream too big. But today, Gates's stare carries a different edge, not just disdain, but a warning. You don't belong here, and I'll make you pay for stepping in. She takes a deep breath, tamping down the anger simmering in her chest, and steps to the podium, her shoes clicking on the cold stone floor like a drumbeat, signaling an unrelenting battle. Charles Lawson sits at the defendant's table, relaxed as if awaiting his morning coffee rather than facing charges of embezzling millions in public funds. He toys with an expensive watch on his wrist, his lips curling into a smug smile as he glances at his lawyer, a polished older man who looks fresh from a high society cocktail party. They're not worried, not in the least. Lawson even nods to a suited man near the prosecution table, as if they're both watching a cheap play with a predictable ending. But when Jasmine places her hand on the documents, opening to a page blazing with red text, State versus Lawson, misappropriation of public funds, Lawson's smile freezes, if only for a moment. He doesn't know she's brought more than paper, she's brought truth, sharper than any blade in this room. The crowd stirs, but not in support. A faint laugh rises from the back, loud enough for her to hear, but soft enough to dodge reproach. Who does she think she is? A middle-aged man in a blue suit mutters, his tone dripping with sarcasm. A woman in the last row covers her mouth, her eyes glinting with amusement, not admiration, but anticipation of Jasmine's fall. Court staff, from clerks to guards, exchange knowing glances, as if they're used to seeing people like her enter and leave defeated. The jury bows their heads, avoiding her gaze, as if fearing entanglement in a confrontation they want no part of. Then Gates's voice slices through the air like a merciless slash. "I hope Miss Crockett isn't planning to turn this place into a circus. No introduction, no respect, just naked scorn. As if she's not a state-appointed prosecutor, but an interloper daring to challenge his supreme authority." Jasmine doesn't reply immediately. She stands still, her hands gripping the podium's edge, nails digging into her palms until she feels the sting. But within her, something colder and sharper than pain rises. Not fear, but a clear realization that she's not just in a courtroom. She's before a fortress of power, built long before she was born, reinforced by men like Gates, who believe the law is theirs to twist and bend. He's not just a judge, he's a symbol of a system rotted from within, where justice isn't a guiding light, but a club to beat down those who dare defy the old order. I see Gates, and don't just see an arrogant man. I see a society accustomed to looking away, where men like him can sit on high, judging the fates of hundreds without ever facing accountability. Then, a small moment tightens Jasmine's chest. In the public gallery, an elderly woman in a threadbare coat stands, her back stooped, hands trembling as she apologizes to a guard for sitting in the wrong spot. She bows her head, eyes full of shame, while the white man beside her, sprawling across half the bench, remains undisturbed. It's no minor incident, it's a silent message from this very courtroom. Who holds power, and who does? Jasmine sees it, and the anger within her no longer simmers. It flares, hot as embers beneath ash, though she keeps her exterior calm. She knows today isn't just a fight for justice in Lawson's case. It's a battle between truth and a corrupt power that's thrived too long on the silence of those who've stood where she stands now. Gates taps his fingers on the bench, a slow rhythm, as if savoring the moment. "Miss Crockett, I trust you're not here to waste our time with emotional theatrics," he says, his tone even, but cutting like a blade. The words aren't just a warning. They're a strike at her very being, her professional honor, her right to exist in this room. Another chuckle rises from the back, louder, bolder, as if the room is complicit in this cruel game. Jasmine turns her head, her eyes sweeping over cold faces, smirking lips, indifferent stares. No one rises to defend her. No one dares defy Gates. She realizes she's not just facing a judge or a defendant. She's facing a system rigged to crush her, not because she's wrong, but because she dares to step into a world they believe she doesn't belong in. I wonder what keeps her steady in that moment. Is it the memory of being dismissed, or the faces of those she knows will never stand here? Jasmine isn't just a lawyer in this room. She's the last flame flickering in a world accustomed to darkness. And when she speaks, her voice rings out, not loud, but clear and firm, a declaration that she won't fall. "Your Honor, I'm here to present the truth, and the truth won't be distorted by anyone." The courtroom falls silent. But it's not a silence of respect. It's the hush of those waiting for her to stumble. And I know the next 6 minutes won't just change her fate, but how we see justice forever. The air in the courtroom thickens after Jasmine Crockett's resolute statement, as if every molecule is contracting, bracing for an inevitable explosion. She stands there, hands gripping the podium, her gaze never leaving Howard Gates, the man still perched above with a cold smugness, as if he's a king awaiting a challenger's kneel before his throne. But Jasmine, she opens the file before her, pulls out a sheet stamped with the state treasury seal, and places it on the projector, her voice ringing out, not loud, but sharp as a blade slicing through the veneer of power. "Your Honor, this is the original budget approval contract. $12.5 million for the East Side redevelopment project. Yet this federal office budget report shows Mr. Lawson's company received a total of $24.8 million. She pauses, letting the numbers hang in the air like an accusation, needing no elaboration. The room goes quiet, but it's not a silence of comprehension. It's the stillness of those who can't believe she'd go this far. Gates raises an eyebrow, hands clasped, then lets out a dry, hollow chuckle, like wind through an abandoned house. "Very creative, Ms. Crockett," he says, his tone light but laced with mockery. as if she's a student spinning a tale to dodge trouble. "Are you writing a financial novel?" A snicker rises from the back row, louder, brasher, as if the room is joining him in this game of ridicule. A court staffer near the door covers his mouth, stifling a grin, while Lawson's lawyer taps his pen on the table, a steady beat like he's keeping time to a tune he's heard too often and never takes seriously. Jasmine doesn't answer the laugh. She stands still, her hands trembling slightly but her eyes ice cold, and in her chest, anger doesn't just burn, it erupts, molten as a volcano held back too long. She knows they're not laughing because she's wrong. They're laughing because they think she can't make the truth matter. Because she's Jasmine Crockett, a black woman daring to stand where they don't want her to exist. She glances at the jury, hoping for a flicker of empathy, but they bow their heads, eyes averted, as if looking at her might drag them into a fight they don't want. Their silence says it all. No one wants to side with a black woman against a powerful judge. But then she flips to the next page, and as the new image flares on the screen, the room seems to stop breathing. It's a form authorizing an off-budget transfer, signed and sealed by one name, Howard R. Gates. His signature blazes, unmistakable, taking up half the screen like a mute confession. A faint whisper rises from the back. "Oh, God, he actually signed it." And a middle-aged woman covers her mouth, eyes wide with shock. But Gates doesn't flinch. He leans forward, hands tightening, and regards the document with indifference, like it's a restaurant menu. "Inadmissible," he says, his voice calm as if dismissing a typo. Jasmine's brow furrows, her tone hardening. "Your Honor, this document was obtained under a State Justice Department subpoena, verified and logged in the federal system." But Gates repeats, voice colder, "I said it's inadmissible, so it's inadmissible." He taps his gavel lightly, as if that gesture alone can erase everything she's shown. That tap rings like a hammer, nailing shut Justice's coffin, and in that moment Jasmine knows she's no longer in a fair trial. This isn't law, it's a stage, and Gates is director, actor, and sole audience with the power to script the ending. But she doesn't stop. She pulls another document from her briefcase, this time an original from Federal Archives, its red seal still pristine. And this is the original, sealed by 3 independent agencies, she says, her voice steady as if no one just tried to snuff it out with a curt dismissal. She sets it on the projector, and again Gates's signature glares, undeniable, beside a note approving the transfer just 6 days before Lawson bought the redevelopment land at a laughably low price. Gates looks at the screen, then turns away, as if his own name sickens him. "This is fabricated," he says, his voice steely but offering no argument, just a decree from a man in power, as if his word can strangle the truth. The courtroom grows more stifling, not from lack of air, but from fear spreading like wildfire. If a judge can casually dismiss evidence implicating himself, what's left for those without power to fight back? Jasmine stands still for a few seconds, not from confusion, but because she realizes rules no longer exist here. Only power. And that power is trying to choke her in front of dozens of witnesses. A court staffer steps near the prosecution table, pretending to adjust the mic but whispering something to the clerk, making them both snicker. Charles Lawson sits still, but his eyes start to flicker, as if sensing the shifting air. A cameraman in the back adjusts his lens, turning from the evidence screen to focus on Lawson, as if they know the truth will soon be swept away. But then a sharp sound cuts through the silence, a hiss from the small speaker on the prosecution table, followed by a low, venomous voice that freezes the room. "Make sure that girl never gets near the books, got it?" The voice is unmistakable. It's Howard Gates. Not on paper, but alive, real, echoing through the space like a confession he can't take back. Every eye snaps back. Pens drop. Recorders stutter before resuming. Jasmine doesn't blink. She stands there, face like stone, and as the voice fades, she steps closer to the podium, her voice ringing out, not loud, but strong enough to crush every whisper. Did everyone just hear whose voice that was? No one answers, but they don't need to. They all know, and the truth is no longer a paper or a number, but a dagger plunged into the heart of power. Gates leans forward, his face paling for a split second before flushing with rage. "That recording is illegal. It can't be presented here," he roars, his voice cracking for the first time, revealing the panic he's hidden all along. But it's no longer a legal objection. It's the desperate cry of a man who knows he's exposed. Jasmine doesn't let him regain control. She calmly pulls out a copy of a legal search warrant, holding it high for the room to see. This recording was legally obtained, authorized by the state prosecutor's office, and verified by a federal inspector 3 weeks ago. I've followed every legal procedure, she says, her tone steady but sharp as a verdict. A murmur rises from the jury. I can't believe it. And in the back, a woman clutches her purse, whispering to her friend, "It's him, it's really him." The anger in the room is no longer a small flame. It explodes, not just from Gates's words, but from the now undeniable truth. The man entrusted to uphold the law has been destroying it from within. Jasmine presses play again, and the voice returns, cold and ruthless. I don't care how, just make sure she doesn't touch the books, got it? It's a hammer shattering the mask Gates has worn for years, revealing not just a judge, but a criminal hiding behind a black robe. He leaps up, hands slamming the bench, his gavel clattering to the floor with a piercing clack. Enough, he shouts, but the voice is no longer a command. It's the plea of a man sinking in his own wreckage. Jasmine doesn't retreat. She steps forward, her gaze locking onto him, not as a prosecutor to a judge, but as a judge to a guilty man. This isn't about right or wrong anymore, Your Honor, she says, her voice low but vibrating with an unstoppable force. This is about who dares to face the truth. And in that moment, the room understands this isn't just about a case. It's about a system rotted to its core, and Jasmine, with all her resolve, is shaking it to its foundation. Howard Gates's desperate shout, "Enough!" still echoes in the courtroom air. But it can't extinguish the fire Jasmine Crockett has ignited. The gavels clatter as it hits the floor. A shrill sound rolls beneath the bench, as if his symbol of authority has crumbled before everyone's eyes. Gates stands there, trembling hands pounding the wood, his face shifting from flushed rage to ghostly pale, his wide eyes no longer those of an arrogant man, but of a beast cornered. Jasmine doesn't back down. She steps forward, her cold stare fixed on him, not with hatred, but with a wordless judgment, as if she's the one holding the gavel and he's awaiting sentence. This isn't about right or wrong anymore, Your Honor, she says, her voice low but resonating with an unshakable power. This is about who dares to face the truth. The words aren't just a statement, they're a final blade piercing the armor Gates has worn for decades. The room holds its breath, the air so dense you could hear the heartbeats of those closest by. Then the courtroom's heavy door bursts open with a deafening bang, and 2 federal officers in dark blue uniforms stride in, their boots striking the stone floor like a drum roll heralding a dynasty's end. They say nothing at first, no need to. Their presence alone stops every sound, from the hum of cameras to the audience's breaths, like a bowstring stretched to its limit. One officer steps forward, pulling a paper from his pocket, his voice thundering through the silence. Howard Gates, by order of the U.S. Attorney General's office and a federal investigation, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice, abuse of judicial power, and aiding in the embezzlement of public funds. The click of handcuffs rings out, cold and unforgiving, as gleaming steel locks around Gates' wrists. Each sound is a hammer blow shattering the image he built, a king in a black robe who once made hundreds beg for mercy, now bowing his head, not in humility, but because he has no strength left to lift it. His face, once brimming with arrogance, is now a broken mask, his panicked eyes scanning the room, searching for someone, anyone, to save him from this nightmare. But no one rises. Not a lawyer, not a court staffer, not a single spectator dares speak. They watch him, not with pity, but with the cold curiosity of those witnessing a god toppled from his pedestal. As the officers lead him past Jasmine, their eyes meet for a fleeting moment. No more contempt, no more power, just fear and a flicker of shame he's never known before. Jasmine doesn't smile, doesn't nod, doesn't gloat. She stands still, her face stone-like, a dispassionate witness to history being rewritten. But the story doesn't end there. Charles Lawson, the man who sat smugly as if watching a play, can no longer hold his composure. He fidgets in his chair, hands trembling as they tap the table, sweat rolling down his forehead despite the room's chill from the air conditioning. He glances at his lawyer, but the polished man now just bows his head, lips pressed tight, as if knowing no defense can salvage this. Jasmine sees the shift. Lawson's confidence has evaporated, leaving a man quaking before the darkness he once thought he could control. She steps toward the defendant's table, each footfall a silent warning, and when she stands before him, her gaze is icy, a blade ready to cut through any lie. "You just saw what happens to someone who thinks they're untouchable, Mr. Lawson," she says. Her voice calm but laced with a fury she can't contain. She flips a page, sliding it toward him. His signature sits beside Gates's, clear as a fingerprint at a crime scene. "Did you think your name wouldn't be on an arrest warrant?" Lawson swallows, the dry sound loud in the room's silence. His lips move, but no words come. He looks around, seeking an escape, but no one stands with him anymore. No Gates, no lawyer, no system that once shielded him. Jasmine leans closer, her voice dropping but heavy enough for the room to feel every word. "Do you want to keep your life? Start talking, or you'll be the next one leaving here in cuffs." The words aren't just a question, they're a challenge, a final stab at his pride. He shrinks back, face ashen, and with a gasping breath he nods. I need protection," he stammers, his voice stripped of the arrogance that's now a distant memory. Jasmine doesn't respond immediately. She nods faintly, but inside the tension doesn't ease, not from victory, but because she knows this is just the first step. She pulls out a prepared statement form, setting a pen on the table before him. "I need a list," she says, her eyes never leaving him. "Everyone involved." Lawson nods again, his shaking hands lifting the pen, and in that moment, Jasmine knows what he's about to reveal could shake not just this courtroom, but a web of power stretching from high-rising offices to the halls of Congress. Yet as she watches him write, she doesn't see a traitor scrambling to save himself. She sees a puppet of bigger players, and her anger isn't for his crimes, but for the innocents crushed by the system he helped sustain. A week later, Jasmine stands before Congress, her black suit not a symbol of triumph, but a reminder of truth's cost. She sets her documents on the podium, not needing to glance at them. She doesn't need paper to say what must be said. "I stand here today," she begins, her voice clear and unwavering, not to recount a past trial, but to remind us all that we can't call this a just nation if the man in a judge's robe betrays the truth. The chamber falls silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on her, from senators to ordinary citizens who travel hours to be here. An elderly mother, perhaps one who lost a child to unjust rulings, lets tears roll down her cheeks. A black veteran stands tall, fists clenched, as if holding back pain from years of a system's neglect. Jasmine looks at them, and through millions of screens nationwide, she continues, "When a man like Howard Gates can sit on the bench for nearly 2 decades, quietly selling justice to the wealthy, the fault isn't his alone, it's ours, for letting silence become complicity." One person rises from the gallery, then 2, then dozens, not shouting or cheering, just standing quietly as a declaration. "We understand, and we won't stay silent anymore." Applause breaks out, not raucous like a rally, but deep and heavy, full of tears and recognition for pain buried too long. Jasmine lowers her voice, but her words echo like a vow. No one is untouchable, no seat too high to escape the truth. And if we truly want to live in a just country, we, the people, must rebuild justice, with truth and the anger we've been taught to suppress. In a small apartment in South Chicago, an 8-year-old girl sits before an old TV, eyes wide, unblinking, as if afraid to miss a second. She doesn't grasp all the big words Jasmine says, but she feels the power in that gaze. A woman who's endured enough and decided to change everything. As Jasmine ends with her final words, "We can't let this anger die in silence. Let it be the reason no one has to fall like this again." The girl's mother, a nurse fresh from a 14-hour shift, looks up, and the girl turns, her voice small but firm as a promise. "Mom, I want to be like her." The words don't reach grand halls, but they carry more weight than any applause, marking a beginning, a flame Jasmine sparked, not just in a courtroom, but in millions of souls waiting to blaze. The light from that old TV in the South Chicago apartment flickers, reflecting in the wide eyes of the 8-year-old girl as if Jasmine Crockett's final words "Let this anger become the reason no one has to fall like this again," have etched themselves into her young soul. Her mother, a nurse just off a grueling 14-hour shift, slumps on the sofa, her tired eyes sparking with rare hope as she hears her daughter's small but certain voice. "Mom, I want to be like her." The words don't echo into halls of power or get logged in congressional records, but they weigh 1,000 pounds. A seed sown in the cracked soil of an unjust world. Jasmine doesn't hear that promise, but if she could, she might realize the fire she lit in that courtroom a week ago didn't just shake Howard Gates or Charles Lawson. It spread further, to corners she's never seen, to hearts that have too long stopped daring to dream of a day when justice might belong to them. In Washington, the applause in the congressional chamber fades, leaving a heavy silence, not from lack of emotion, but because everyone wonders what comes next. Jasmine stands there, hands resting lightly on the podium, her gaze sweeping the crowd, from senators in pricey suits to ordinary folks in worn shoes who trekked miles to be here. She doesn't smile or bow like a victor in a film. She just stands, face stern but eyes alight with a fire that never dimmed. She knows Gates in handcuffs, Lawson's surrender, and the list of accomplices being written are just a small win in a bigger war. The system remains, with other high seats, other black robes, and others like Gates lurking in shadows, waiting to resume their game. But today, she made it tremble, and that tremor can't be forgotten. The congressional doors close behind her, the thud ringing like a reminder that this story doesn't truly end. Not when she leaves the chamber, not when the camera lights dim, not when tomorrow's papers hail her as a hero. I picture Jasmine stepping outside, the cold April evening slicing through her thin coat, and she pauses, gazing at a starless black sky. Maybe she thinks of those who stood before Gates's bench, mothers pleading for their sons, workers wrongfully accused for daring to sue exploitative companies, invisible people she's never met, but always carries in her heart. She didn't fight for fame or glory, she fought for them, and now, alone in the dark, she wonders, is this enough? Can one flame burn down a forest rotted for so long? But then, like a lightning bolt tearing the sky, the image of that Chicago girl flashes in my mind, not as a memory but a prophecy. That child with blazing eyes and a whispered vow is the answer Jasmine never hears but always seeks. Out there in Baltimore, a single mother watches the news and clenches her fist, resolving her child won't grow up in silence. At UCLA, a law student scribbles Jasmine's words, swearing she'll one day face men like Gates in a court. In New York, a homeless man by the roadside hears the story on a radio, and for the first time in years he thinks maybe hope still exists. Jasmine didn't just shake the system, she planted seeds of change. And though she won't see them sprout, they're taking root in places power has never touched. I'm not here to tell you everything will be fine, that justice will triumph like in books with perfect endings. I'm Jody Pico, and I don't believe in fairy tales. But I believe in moments like this, when a woman stands up, faces an entire system, and makes it kneel, if only for a heartbeat. Jasmine's story doesn't end when Gates is led away, when Lawson names his accomplices, or when she stands before Congress. It ends when you, reading this, decide what to do with the truth she's placed in your hands. Think of that Chicago girl, her small but mighty promise. I want to be like her. She's you, she's me. She's anyone who's felt helpless before injustice, but still harbors a spark of hope in their chest. So what will you do? Will you let the fire Jasmine lit cool, fading into a dim memory in the endless news cycle? Or will you turn it into action? A word, a step, a moment you refuse to bow. I don't promise you a perfect world, but I promise that if you hold on to this anger, if you make it a guiding flame, you can change something. Not the whole world, but one person, one family, one small corner of life you touch. Justice isn't handed down from above. It's something we must seize. Sometimes with blood, sweat, and tears no one sees. Jasmine did it not because she's stronger than us, but because she dared to stand when everyone else chose silence. Let this story be more than a story. Let it be a call that won't let you sit still. Somewhere out there, a girl is watching you, waiting to see what you'll do with the fire Jasmine passed on. Don't let it die. Don't let silence win again. Because if Jasmine Crockett can make a system tremble, then you, with all you have, can do the same. The only question left is, where will you start?